What if the river that once watered the Garden of Eden is vanishing before our eyes? Not because of time or drought, but because prophecy is finally catching up with reality. The Euphrates River, mentioned in both Genesis and Revelation, is not just a geographic landmark, it's a divine clock, and its silence may be the final tick before the end of days. This isn't just about water levels. It's about ancient warnings, mysterious seals, and the unsettling possibility that humanity is on the brink of something we can no longer ignore. The Euphrates River has always been more than just a source of life for the Middle East. Stretching over 1,700 miles from eastern Turkey through Syria and Iraq, this river has witnessed empires rise and fall. Babylon, Assyria, Sumer, all these civilizations drank from it, built beside it and warred for its banks. But now the river is drying. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally. Once full, strong, and dangerous, the mighty Euphrates is today a ghost of its former self, revealing dry, cracked earth and the bones of forgotten civilizations. It's not just a climate issue. For millions, especially those steeped in biblical prophecy, this is a trumpet blast. Revelation 16:12 reads, "The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east." This one line has captivated and terrified theologians for centuries. Some say it's symbolic, a metaphor for political or spiritual shifts. But others, watching satellite images of the river shrinking, feel a cold certainty in their bones. This prophecy is no longer dormant. It's breathing, and it's unfolding. But here's where things become even more mysterious. In recent years, as the Euphrates recedes, stories have emerged of strange sounds, echoing from beneath. The dry riverbed, groaning noises, like metal gates opening, like something ancient and chained is stirring. Some locals swear they've heard voices, whether hallucinations or echoes of buried history. One cannot deny the symbolism. Revelation also speaks of 4 angels bound at the Euphrates, waiting to be released when the hour, day, month, and year arrives. Could we be approaching that fateful hour? Skeptics dismiss these accounts as folklore or hysteria. They point to upstream dams, climate change, and political mismanagement as the real culprits of the Euphrates' demise. Of course, these are valid explanations. But when science and prophecy collide, history teaches us to look deeper. Was the prophecy foretelling natural causes? Or was it simply describing the outcome? The Bible doesn't list the method. It only foretells the result. And the result is undeniably here. Consider this. The Euphrates is not just vanishing, it is unveiling. As the waters disappear, ancient ruins, cities, and even human remains are resurfacing, as if time itself is being rewound. Hidden temples, buried tombs, and artifacts long thought lost are now exposed to the open air. It's as if the earth is revealing its secrets one by one, exposing the forgotten sins of empires long fallen, perhaps as a final testimony before judgment. This isn't the first time nature has played the role of prophetic messenger. In the time of Noah, it was rain. In the Exodus, it was blood-red rivers. In Revelation, it's the drying up of the Euphrates. The earth always speaks before it screams. And perhaps now, it's whispering the final warnings in cracked riverbeds and dust-covered stones. What would it mean if the end times were not some distant event, but a slowly unfolding process already in motion? The signs wouldn't appear as apocalyptic explosions, but as steady, quiet unravelings. Rivers drying, empires crumbling, truths being uncovered. If Revelation is a coded message, then the Euphrates may be the cipher. The river is mentioned in the first book of the Bible and the last a divine parenthesis around human history. In Genesis 2:14, it marks the boundary of Eden. In Revelation 9:14, it becomes the prison of apocalyptic beings. Eden and Armageddon, both tied to the same flow of water. That's not coincidence. That's architecture, spiritual engineering. And perhaps in its final evaporation, the Euphrates is not dying, it is completing its task. Throughout history, rivers have symbolized life, cleansing, passage. But the drying of a river is different. It signals abandonment. It means a journey has ended. What's left behind is silence, a space where something once moved and now waits. That's the terrifying part. What is waiting in that emptiness? Some theologians suggest that the kings from the east may not be literal armies, but forces, ideologies, powers, or global shifts that will reshape the world. The dried Euphrates could be a path not for soldiers, but for change. Perhaps economic collapse, technological domination, or spiritual delusion are the real armies marching forward. And they come not with swords, but with silence, with systems, with the steady draining of truth from the world. When we look at the Euphrates today, cracked and breathless, it feels like a mirror to our world. We are dry, spiritually parched, morally withered. Our cities overflow with information, and yet we thirst for wisdom. We build towers of glass and data, yet crumble when the earth trembles or the sky burns. Maybe the river is not just drying. Maybe it is reflecting us. There's something sacred about water. In every major religion, water is a symbol of purification, rebirth, and presence. Jesus was baptized in the Jordan. Moses parted the Red Sea. Muhammad spoke of rivers in paradise. But in Revelation, when the river runs dry, it marks a turning point, when grace gives way to judgment. The Euphrates' disappearance might be less about ecology and more about spiritual economy, a divine withdrawal of mercy. There's still time to ask, what is the meaning behind this moment? Are we watching history or are we watching a prophecy ripen? Whether one believes in literal angels bound beneath the earth or not, the symbolism is thunderous. Chains loosening, gates creaking open. Ancient forces once restrained by divine will, now stirring as humanity turns away from the light it once followed. So what do we do with this knowledge? Do we wait for headlines to match prophecy word for word? Or do we wake up now, realizing that the signs are already glowing like embers beneath our feet? The drying Euphrates may not scream like fire from heaven, but it whispers, day by day, with every inch it recedes. Prepare. If the river is the threshold between two ages, then we stand on the edge. And edges are dangerous places. People lose balance. Nations misstep. Faith either strengthens or shatters. We are being invited, not forced, to look, listen, and decide. Not through fear, but through awareness. Not through superstition, but through humility. The end times, if they are near, are not about monsters or explosions. They are about the soul of a world gasping like a river in retreat. They are about a planet shedding its illusions. The Euphrates, once the heart of civilization, is now its omen. A final message carved into cracked clay and ancient. Prophecy. The time is not coming. It has begun, and maybe, just maybe, the drying river isn't just a prophecy fulfilled. It's an invitation. An invitation to remember. To remember who we were when the rivers were full. When the world still paused in awe at the divine. When silence was sacred instead of uncomfortable. We were once a people who believed in mystery, in destiny, in more than what we could weigh and measure. The Euphrates challenges us to return to that deeper awareness. As the waters vanish, we are confronted by the bones of history, literal and spiritual. Buried cities resurface like memories we tried to forget. Temples dedicated to gods long dethroned. Inscriptions in forgotten languages, and artifacts of civilizations that believed they were eternal. They are reminders that human power always fades, but divine truth does not. It waits beneath the surface until time pulls back the curtain. What if the drying Euphrates is not just a countdown, but a mirror to our neglect? For years, the river has been overdrawn, diverted, exploited. And perhaps in this abuse of nature lies another hidden layer of the prophecy. Not only is the river drying because of physical reasons, but because humanity has spiritually drained itself. The river was always a symbol of the flow between heaven and earth. And now it is interrupted. Our connection has withered, our waters have run dry. The book of Revelation is often seen as a text of doom, but beneath the horror and judgment is something far more profound. The call to wake up, to see clearly, to choose between the path of truth and the path of deception. The Euphrates doesn't just mark the location of end time events, it marks the moment when blindness becomes sight, when excuses fall silent and every soul must reckon with what it has become. If we allow ourselves to look past the politics and pollution, past the skeptics and the noise, we might hear something deeper from that riverbed, the sound of time unraveling. We are taught to view the world through seasons and years, but prophecy sees time differently. It sees moments charged with eternal meaning, tipping points where the spiritual world spills into the physical. We stand now at one such tipping point, and the Euphrates is the silent witness. What would the ancients say if they saw their sacred river turn to dust? Would they tremble in fear or nod in solemn understanding? After all, many of their writings also warned of a great unraveling, not just in land or law, but in the heart of humanity. A collapse of truth, a flood of lies, a drought of faith. And here we are, yet not all is despair. If the Euphrates drying is indeed a sign, then signs are meant to guide. To warn, yes, but also to redirect. A road sign doesn't just scream danger. It points us toward another way, and that's where hope enters. Not cheap optimism, but ancient hope. The kind that grows in silence, in ashes, in deserts. The kind that waits for those who finally lift their eyes. We have lived for too long thinking history is behind us. But the drying river reminds us, no, history is beneath us, and we're walking across its final chapters. Each step we take cracks open something older, something deeper. The questions are rising from the mud. What do you worship? What do you fear? What do you trust? Even science, in its pursuit of objectivity, cannot ignore the awe of what's happening. Drones film the shrinking banks. Researchers document the fossils, and yet none of them can explain why it feels so final. There's a heaviness in the air, a sacred hush, like the moments before a storm. Even nature seems to pause, uncertain whether to weep or to roar. Many wonder if the Euphrates will ever return, if someday rains will refill its bones and the land will forget this drought. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe we're not meant to return to the old flow. Maybe this is the end of something, and the beginning of something else entirely, something we cannot yet name. The question is no longer if prophecy is unfolding. The question is, what will we do within it? Will we remain asleep, lulled by comfort and distraction? Or will we awaken to the river's cry, to the echoes of revelation, and find ourselves not as spectators, but as participants in the greatest unfolding of all? The Euphrates doesn't ask us to panic. It asks us to see. It asks us to remember that water, though physical, always carried spiritual meaning, that what once flowed freely can be taken away, that history always repeats but never exactly the same. This time, the river is not just watering gardens, it is watering prophecy. As the last streams fade, as the heat cracks the clay where kings once marched and prophets once wept, we are left with the simplest, most ancient question: are you ready? Not ready for war, not ready for fire, but ready to know, ready to see the world not as random but as woven, ready to accept that what was written long ago is not mythology, it is unfolding reality. The Euphrates doesn't scream, it whispers, but to those who listen, its message is clear. Perhaps the greatest mistake we could make is assuming that this moment is just another event in the long river of time, but deep down we know it's not. The Euphrates isn't just drying, it's speaking. It is a testimony, a reckoning, a final line in the script written thousands of years ago, now coming to life not with thunder, but with silence. And in that silence, a question remains suspended in the heat, above the cracked earth. What will you do with this truth? Because the end isn't an explosion, it's a choice. And the drying river may just be the last invitation we ever get. Before the angels rise, before the gates open, before the world as we know it turns the final page. Listen, it has already begun.